Hi, it's Anna. Welcome back to Books on the Go. I'm here with a book haul. So we've been away for most of July. I read about 2.5 books, but that was really the end of my TBR. So when I got home, I did go book shopping, and in no particular order, I bought Red Queen by Juan, Gomez-Jurado, and that must be translated. I'm just looking for translated by Mick Caistor. So this I had seen, I think last year I'd seen it in the bookshops. I loved the cover. It's a very arresting cover. It's a crime novel about a serial killer, and it's been a $1 million bestseller in Spain, I believe, and I think it's even been adapted or will be adapted. The sequel is coming out. It's part of a trilogy. So I had nearly bought it last year, but I didn't, and I had so many other books that I needed to get. But I saw it again at Imprints the other day, and I think it was Catherine or Jason recommended it, so I thought I will dive into it. It's been compared with the Steg Larsson Girl with the Dragon Tattoo novels, and it is fast-paced. I can see why there's the comparison, because there's a neurodivergent woman who's solving the crimes, and in this instance, instead of the journalist, which we had in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoos, there's a police officer who's been suspended helping her, who's a gay man. And on paper, that all sounds very like a fun premise, you know, two eccentric characters, almost an odd couple in the sense they don't necessarily get along. They've both got personal issues. And you know, she hasn't left her attic in Madrid for a long time, and so she's coming out to try to solve this serial killer, very disturbing murder. And so on paper it sounded good, but something about it isn't working for me. So I've actually DNF'd it about over halfway through. So I wasn't minding it. It was, well, fast-paced, short chapters. The characters were intriguing, but there was something, the neurodivergent woman, the woman who's the protagonist, they've made it almost magical or almost science fiction, in the sense that she can remember everything she has read. So that gives it an element of, it's almost too convenient. And then there's another layer where you go back in time and realize that someone has drugged her or done scientific experiments on her to accentuate that, and it gets almost into the sort of science fiction action movie type of genre, which I don't love. And she's just, her character I couldn't quite get a grasp on, and because sometimes she's really warm and charming, and other times she's very cool and impersonal, and I couldn't quite grasp her character. And he didn't quite sit right with me. He's quite crass, and his character didn't work for me either. And then the subject matter is very dark. Yeah, the murders are quite nasty, or I should say murder. I can't remember how many there are at this point, but certainly the first one's very disturbing. And the tone was quite macho. So given the premise of a woman and gay man as the two protagonists, the tone was quite different to what I was expecting. And so anyway, I wasn't loving it. So let me know if you've read this. I didn't mind it, but I've decided I don't need to continue right to the end. But let me know. That's Red Queen. And then by contrast, Spook Street by Mick Herron, which is one of my favourite series, part of the Slow Horses or Slough House series. And I'm very late to the party. I think I spoke about this in an earlier video, but I read the first one a few years ago, and I've been eking them out and also watching the series on TV, which is superb. And they're just brilliant, and I think each one I read I love them even more because they're very well plotted. The characters are actually all very distinct and interesting, but also the dialogue is witty. The sense of humour just has me laughing out loud at times, but there is depth to the characters as well, and there's compassion. But it is, you know, a really, really good spy thriller. So I highly recommend these if you haven't picked them up. I'm sure you have. But it's like just like a comfort read, but also quite stimulating, all rolled into one, and I can't wait to get back to it. So that's Spook Street. Now, a book that I picked up purely because of the cover, and I bought it because of two other elements. So this is Fruit of the Dead by Rachel Lyon, and the cover is just so beautiful. So I saw it, I picked it up because it's been a long time since I bought a book purely on whim, just not having heard of it. Normally I've heard of something before I pick it up in the bookstore, and this was described on the front cover by Ruth Gilligan as Ancient Greece meets Succession by way of Emma Cline, so I was intrigued. And it's a retelling of the myth of Persephone and Demeter, and it's a camp counselor, Corey, who's about 18 and about coming to the end of the camp. This is in the US, and her father, there's something's off at home, so she doesn't want to go home to her father. Her mother's not on the scene, and one of the dads offers her a job at his place at an island off the coast of Maine, and he's an opiates tycoon, or he's a pharmaceutical tycoon, and she goes to presumably live there, and there's something untoward and something's going wrong, and her mother hears this cry of distress, so hence the mythology sort of reference, and then it's told from her perspective and her mother's perspective, which sounds really intriguing. And then I saw that it was blurbed by Caroline Hughes, who I've just read her book The Alternatives, which I absolutely loved, the Irish author. And so I thought, if Caroline, it's one of those situations where if Caroline Hughes likes it, I trust her judgment, having read one of her books and loved it, and so I am sold. I will give this a go. So let me know if you've read this, because I had not heard of it at all. Not that that's saying much, because I'm clearly out of touch. But Fruit of the Dead, I'm looking forward to that one. And then two more. One is Woo Woo by Ella Baxter. And again, there are two reasons that I bought this. One is that I loved New Animal by Ella Baxter. She's an Australian author, and that was from memory a young woman who goes to work in the family funeral home, and there's an S&M storyline, and it's very real, quite funny at times, but just really it sticks with you, and the writing was so strong, and it just felt really fresh, and I loved it. So immediately, if I hear that there's a new book out by Ella Baxter, I'm definitely interested, probably will buy it. But also Jacqueline from Hill of Content Bookshop on Instagram has been raving about this, and so that, you know, that made it a no-brainer, so I had to pick it up. And then it's got lots of great blurbs, and she's been described as hilarious, but also that this one apparently is quite weird and dramatic. Anna Snoistra describes it as a surreal fever dream, which can be good or bad depending on the book. And Laura McPhee Brown says this book is hungry and hilarious with prose so exquisite it makes me scream. And then at the top on the front cover, Emily Maguire says an incandescent howl of a book. So some really interesting blurbs there. So I don't know much about this one. I think it's Sabine, who's an artist, and she's about to host an exhibition, but she's also being stalked. So I think there's some feminist rage, but there's also the process of being an artist. And I think Jacqueline, from memory, made the point that she doesn't always love books about artists or art depicted in books, which I'm completely the same. But this one she found really compelling. So that's Woo Woo. We'll see how we go. I can't wait for that. And then on quite a different note, or quite a different book, My Friends by Hisham Matar. So this was me deciding that I'm going to read at least a couple of books from the Booker long list this year, and I loved Hisham Matar's The Return, about his father who went missing, or who was taken in Libya, and I think is presumed dead. I can't even remember, this is terrible, if they ever had confirmation of that, but it's about grief for his father, and it's beautiful. But then the other one I loved recently was A Month in Siena, and I'm sure that I've spoken about that about 5 times on this channel, but it's a short book about literally him spending a month in Siena to look at the art, but along the way it's actually even more poignant, reflecting on his father, and I found that even more moving than The Return, and just love his writing. I remember from that book it was like being in the company of a really clever friend who's just great company and so clear in his writing. So I don't know much about this. It's, I think, as the title suggests, about friendship, and it's friends who are based in London, but there's a Libyan connection, so it also addresses Libya as well. And I don't know much more, but it's quite long, but I just thought, I love his writing so much. I'm definitely keen to give this a go, and we'll see what happens. So that's My Friends by Hisham Matar. That's all of my book haul. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not too naughty. Let me know what you've been reading, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.